Welcome to the Philly Real Estate Special. I am your host, Dan Kiely. Alongside me is.
Stelzer.
So, Tom, how was the weekend and how's it going today?
Thanks for asking. I had a great weekend. Got to go back up to northeastern Pennsylvania, Scranton. There's a very cool new office mural that I got to see while walking the streets of Scranton, so that was pretty cool. I was up there celebrating Cassie and Keaton, our friends just got married, and
Nice.
had a great weekend seeing them and seeing the rest of our friends up in northeastern Pennsylvania. It's unfortunate when you move away from all your friends and family, so try to make the most out of that time that we got up there. How about you, Dan? How was your weekend?
My weekend was uneventful, which is good though. Just trying to stay out of the heat. It's been, I think, day 16 or day 17 of triple digits here in Houston, Texas. So Sunday was 107. So it was a new record here in Houston, and been training for a half marathon. So running a half marathon on my birthday, October 29th. So um, it's a little crazy, but I'm excited for it. So nonetheless, it's been a pretty good weekend and good start to the week.
You're a stud.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anyway, so this is episode 2 of the Philly Real Estate Special. And shout out to everybody who's followed us on Instagram, liked our videos, left comments, reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, even on YouTube. We are on YouTube as well. So we'll have all the social medias and ways to find us at the end of our podcast. So, Tom, why don't we kind of talk about what this episode's about?
Yeah, we have a great episode planned for today. Trying to follow up after our first episode, we want to do a deep dive into TDJ investments. That's Tom, Dan, and Jeff. We started our company about 5 years ago in 2018, and so we're going to dive deeper into how we got our company started and see if that helps anybody else in their real estate journey at this time.
Absolutely. So, we'll do a deeper dive, as Tom said, on the company as a whole, where we started from, where we're at today, and we'll break it down by property. And we also have a special guest on as well.
Yeah, so Jeff Kiely is going to be our special guest this week. He's our third partner in PDJ Investments, and he's also Dan's father.
Yeah. So, family first. We'll have our first guest here, and it's a great conversation, and really excited for it. Tom, do you have anything else you want to add before we bring Jeff on?
Nope, let's get him in here.
So, diving into episode 2 of the Philly Real Estate Special, as we mentioned in the intro, we have a very special guest, Jeff Kiely, third member of TDJ Investments. Jeff, how's it going?
Going great. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, what we wanted to do is talk about how TDJ got started briefly, give an overview of, what was your mindset going into it and where we're at today. And then I think talk about our properties and where we see ourselves in the next few years and continue to grow.
Okay.
Tom, anything else?
No, I think that's everything.
Awesome.
And
So,
so yeah, I
go.
got it. I'll start us off. So, um, Dan and I were talking about real estate a ton. I just purchased a rental property of my own and realized I didn't have enough money to buy any other rental properties. So I was talking to Dan often, almost daily, about what I could do to try and get another property. And so, Dan, what was that conversation like maybe with your dad when you were pitching him to join when you realized you and I didn't have enough money, just the two of us?
It was a funny conversation because Tom, we talked, like you said, pretty much every single day. I was working at Granite Telecommunications. We would talk back and forth, text, and um, you mentioned that you wanted somebody to partner with for this real estate journey, and you know, it was my idea of it probably would be better to bring somebody with more experience on, and
Yeah,
also probably had more money than two college kids just starting out. So
yeah.
um, So Jeff, do you want to kind of do you remember the conversation we had? Because
I remember the entire event.
why don't you dive in? Because
I remember you guys coming into the gym,
oh yeah,
all dressed up to pitch me the idea of the LLC, and I thought it was a total scam. But since you're my offspring, I had to listen. And it dawned on me very quickly it was a great idea because you guys wanted to invest in the the area around where you went to school, right?
mm-hmm.
Your ties to the football program there and like instant rentals is what popped into my head. And clearly you guys had no credit, no money. So I said, yeah, this would be fun. But the funny thing is that I've always wanted to do this, but just never had, I don't know, I never had the impetus or the incentive to do it on my own. And I think, kind of when thinking about it, having you two guys approach me about it, and I'm just like, this, I thought at the time, I said, this would be great. I can just like be a silent partner and the two young guys can do all the work. And that didn't work out that way entirely. But no, it was a great idea and really glad we did it.
Wow, that's awesome. I never knew that side of the story. And that's kind of why me and Dan decided to put this podcast together, was to have more people that, might have had thoughts about getting into real estate and didn't think that they could, realize, hey, it's not that bad. And if a lot of people are too scared to do it alone. Hey, I am too. And that's part of the reason that I wanted to, start a company with you guys and be able to grow that way. It's something about real estate that does feel risky when you're buying properties by yourself, but when you can split it with three other people, it's an easier way to grow and make sure that take some of the risk out of it, because you have two broke college kids, but we have the third guy who had all the money. So
exactly. And
you know what the analogy is, like really a sick analogy is like, if you're going to die in a plane crash, you want to have a bunch of people with you. You don't want to be by yourself. It's the same sort of concept, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what it was. So when we got started with TDJ Investments, do you guys remember how much money we put in? I was talking to Dan about this earlier, and I think it was $10,000 each.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was initially. It was 10 grand each.
10 grand to at least try and get our first property, and then I think once we secured that first property, we had to throw another 5 grand in, just because for
the rehab.
Yeah, for the rehab as well. And Tom, to your point about not knowing where to start when it comes to investing in real estate, I'm kind of going through that right now because this is my second year in this apartment, and I'm starting to go look at houses in the Houston area, and it's like I'm still trying to figure out what's a good area, what's a bad area. So it's like learning, and the whole business has helped kind of give me more knowledge of like what to like look out for and what not to look out for.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too. I remember when we decided to move forward. I remember, it was pretty easy to put the LLC together. I had some relationships at the bank that we all had accounts at. And so really just set up the LLC, put some seed money in, some, capital contribution. We didn't have any property identified at the time. We just figured we'd get some cash put in the bank. And so if we had the opportunity to buy something quickly, we could move on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then from there, I think that's when we started searching for properties. And we probably searched for a good, I want to say 2 to 4 months potentially. At least, we couldn't really find, unfortunately, when we decided to get started, we couldn't find any properties on the market. There was nothing listed for what we were looking to do. So,
yeah. And so when we first started the LLC, it was February, March of 2018. So,
yeah, I believe March.
So either Tom or Jeff kind of walk through the first house that we walked through.
Yeah, this was this was with our realtor, and we we had done some searching online for properties for sale, and so we had a couple places lined up, and the first house we looked at was a big lot. I remember the lot.
Huge.
I think it
It
was
was
a
a huge,
double lot. I think it had
yeah,
two lots. That's why I think I picked that one out, and I liked it because of the double lot.
yeah. And the what's the movie with uh, the Silence of the Lambs? Walking through that house reminded me of the house that guy lived in. Uh, do you remember that? Like
Yeah.
the rooms were really
Yeah.
small, and we walked down the basement, and the last thing we expected to see in this basement was loaded with stuff, was some guy sitting in a chair that was, we had no idea somebody was living down there because the people showing us the house didn't say anything. I remember walking down there, and that guy scared the hell out of me sitting there.
Yeah, and you didn't tell any of us. So then you watch Dan walks down, we turn the corner, whoa! And then I walk down, turn, whoa! Like none of us had this idea. This guy's just sitting in this disgusting basement. The whole house smelled like cat pee. Needless to say,
Bad.
very happy we didn't wind up with that house. And so I think we looked at two other houses that day that Dan and I kind of liked better. And then Jeff begged us to go look at Richards Drive. And, Dan and I didn't necessarily want this house. We didn't want a townhome, but Jeff kind of begged us to go. And so, Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Richards Drive since you're the one that brought us there?
Yeah. So, we were all looking for stuff. And I remember seeing this online, and I can't remember if I think it was listed for, was it listed for 110?
I believe so. Maybe even
Yeah.
115.
Yeah, it was
I-
listed for 115, but I was looking at other townhomes in the development, and it was all like $1.50 they were sold for. And I'm thinking, we can't afford not to look at this, even though we didn't think we were interested in a townhome at the time. And then it turned out that that was a house that was the person who lived there had died, and they left it to their family, and I think it was the nephew. They just wanted to get rid of it. They didn't want to do anything with it, and the one thing that I've always read and people have always told me is you make most of your money in real estate when you buy it, not when you sell it. In other words, buy it for the best possible price versus hoping for appreciation. And so I'm thinking, well, this could be like a $50K equity play just on our first house. And then when you guys saw it, you guys kind of liked it and thought it'd be good as well, primarily because it was like almost walking distance to the college.
Yeah, and I believe we wanted to rent to college students, and at the time we didn't know if we could rent to college students in that HOA, and we looked into their bylaws, and it seemed like we could rent to college kids. So we said, okay, let's buy this house. And I think, Jeff, you wanted to offer around $90,000 or so, and
Yeah.
then
I think
they
we
came
did.
back. Yeah, I think we did. And then we ended
They
up
came back with
they
100.
found it. Yep. And so we got it for $100,000.
So, a question that just popped in my head: if TDJ goes and finds another property, whether it's in Dallas or any other place, do we want to Do we want to buy a property that has an HOA, or are you guys pro HOA or no? I see
No.
Tom shake. Nope,
No,
absolutely not.
no. And this HOA is like crazy.
Do you?
I haven't heard great things about HOAs, but this has to be one of the worst where this townhome is.
Do you remember the meeting? Yeah. They're like, so this TDJ company, and we're like, hey, we're present. We're right here.
Well, you got to
So we're
kind of
so
fill it in.
excited.
Like,
Yeah.
for the listeners, like we were running into some issues and some complaints, and so the three of us thought, since we're all in sales, we can just go and kind of sweet talk the HOA women, and they'll love us. And so we show up for the meetings, and everyone in the room hates us.
They pretty much started the meeting with, hey, everybody, this is our lawyer, and he has something to say. And he goes out and he goes, if anybody is renting to college students, you are no longer allowed to do so, based off us changing our bylaws from 4 people blood related or less down to 2 people blood related or less. that can live in one of these homes. And they all stared right at us.
Unbelievable.
Hard to overcome that objection.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
So,
then the one thing we did do on the Richards though is, we had funded the company with about 10K each, and then we probably put another 5K in each to redo all the floors, add a bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Paint, all that sort of thing. It wasn't in bad shape when we got it, but we had set it up so we could rent it to four students, etc. And then we kind of got fortunate after the fact, when they HOA changed the rules. We were able to find actually a football coach, and his fiance moved in there, and were there for a few years as well, right? And now we have someone in there for a little longer time, so it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. And one thing that you kind of touched on a little bit there, but we've done almost at every house we've purchased, and we kind of make it a staple of ours, is trying to buy a house that has 3 bedrooms or, slightly fewer bedrooms but it has a little bit of extra space where you can add that 4th bedroom, and kind of make it a slightly bigger house and rent it out to more students. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I don't know. You guys chime in, but I think our kind of philosophy is try and get something that has some equity already in it,
Yeah.
and some space to add some additional rooms, bathrooms, bedrooms, etc., so that you know we're multiplying the equity potential on these properties, especially based on how we're doing the BRRRR method. So
Exactly. And that
absolutely.
pretty much leads us into the second property that we found. Once we bought Richards and fixed it up and we had it rented out for a little bit, and then our kids were getting ready to get kicked out of the house, we figured we had to find another, place to try and give them an opportunity to still rent from us. And so we went to the bank, we got our house reappraised, I believe, and they came back with $150,000 appraisal. So we had that extra equity built into the property, and we did a cash out refinance to pull that money out. So we had a couple extra dollars to go into a new property. And I was doing some research driving around Dallas, and I found a home that I thought was listed way too low for Dallas, Pennsylvania. I think it was $89,000 or something.
89.9. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, that to me was like, wow, this is a pretty cheap house. We have to go check this out. And I remember going to look through it, and the realtor was like, I don't think you're going to want this house. We really can't get you in there. And long story short, the house, when I finally did get in there, had a lot of stuff in it. You could barely see the house, the structure, or virtually anything. It was a hoarder house. So the entire house was loaded with anything and everything you could imagine. Um, we ended up taking, what, 2 or 3 dumpsters to get it completely cleared out way later
Took like
after we
two.
bought it.
two full dumpsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, two full dumpsters. That's how much stuff was left there. Um, but anyway, we ended up really liking that house. We thought that it would give us really good potential to fit our strategy, the BRRRR strategy, to buy it, renovate it and rent it out and refinance it again. And so we ended up moving forward with that process. And do you remember, Dan, how that loan process went when we, got the approval? We made our offer got accepted, and then what happened?
The waiting period. It was There was a contingency on the person that lived in the house was moving into an assisted living home, and she was on the wait list. So we were supposed to close, I don't know, it was probably
June or July,
somewhere
maybe?
right.
Or,
And of 2019. Anyway, long story short, it took like 9 months to close on that property. And it was just because she kept getting pushed back and pushed back. And then she finally, realtor texted us in our group chat and was like, hey, she's moving out. Great. Let's get a dumpster. The cleaning shout out to Nick Smith. He helped us clean. And
yes, he did.
we bribed him with food. But anyway, going back to before we bought that house, talk about the process, Tom, you mentioned it, the cash or refinancing and that process for people that might not know, and talk about the BRRRR strategy as well.
Yeah, so just to break down the numbers a little bit more, when you buy a house for $100,000, you're putting 20% down, so it's what, $25,000. So we had a $75,000 loan on that property, and then when the bank reappraises you for $150,000, you would be able to pull out what's 25% or yeah, 20% of 150. What's that? 120.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we're able to get a new loan from the bank for $120,000, and you take that 120 minus the existing 70-ish thousand dollars that were left on the original loan, and we're able to pull out $50,000, tax free, and use that $50,000 as our down payment for our second property, and then use, for a $90,000 home, that's about $20,000 give or take with closing costs, and left us with about $25,000 to do some renovations, repairs with at Overbrook.
Perfect.
Yeah, I do remember the other key thing, I guess, for people, and I guess some investors wouldn't do this. We happen to be cool with it, which is we work pretty well with that realtor. It was a hoarder's house. It wasn't like your hoarders on Discovery Channel or something. This was an older woman whose husband had passed away, and she really didn't keep up with the house, and she probably had a lot of memories, whatever. But I remember the realtor saying, "Would you guys work with us to let her stay in the house?" And like, I'm sure a lot of investors would just walk away from that.
For
and
sure.
we haven't even gotten to like what that house has meant for our growth of our business, right? I think it might have been even less because we let her stay so long. He cut another couple thousand off or something. I don't remember
Right.
exactly what it was.
So I do remember that it was, the price point was $89.9, and we're like, yeah, that sounds like a great deal. And we came back to the closing and we're like, hey, can we get a discount because we have to clean out your house? So she knocked off $700.
Oh, is that what it was?
It was $700 for the price of the dumpster. I think the dumpster ended up being like $1,500, but
that's because we had to get two of them.
We had to get 2 or 3 of them. So, but yeah, that was the discount. And to your point, I think that's one thing that I do really enjoy about our business is Tom and I are very quick to like, oh, we see a property on Zillow or Realtor.com or whatever, and it's like, we should buy this. We should go check this out. And to your credit, Jeff, it's like, that's not our strategy. Let's stick to our plan, because there were deals that we ended up saying no to, and just because it wasn't part of the BRRRR strategy.
Or yeah, and specifically like the asking, like we couldn't get the buy price down low enough, right? Maybe we get $5,000 of equity, which you can't really do much with $5,000 of equity, but you can do a lot with $50,000 of equity,
Right.
And the other thing too is, based on our first 2 houses, our strategy was look for people who passed away or people that are moving into assisted living, right?
Yeah, we thought
Exactly.
we found a pretty good niche in the market when we got those 2 properties that way. And we ended up. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry to cut you off. It's funny because the last 2 properties we got, do you guys remember? We'll get into it, but do you remember what they used to be?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll save it, but it's pretty funny that was our strategy, and it appears to be working out pretty well.
And more or less another part of our strategy again, we bought Overbrook, and that was a 3-bed, 1.5 bath property. And immediately once we got everything out of there, that hoarder's house, we decided to add another bedroom in the basement to turn it into a 4-bed, 1.5 bath. So definitely a common theme of us trying to incorporate extra bedrooms, buying 3 beds and trying to turn it into a 4-bed house to get extra equity that way, kind of forced equity in a way.
Additional cash flow, right? Another bedroom to rent to another student, right?
Yep.
So I think that kind of gives a good overview of our first two properties and where we were at. And so moving forward, do you guys remember when we bought Luzerne Avenue? Was that during
That
COVID?
was during
Or
COVID. Yeah, that was when everybody was telling us not to buy anything because it was, during COVID.
and for the listeners out there, if you remember, March of it was really February of 2020. It's like, hey, COVID's coming 2 weeks, and then we get back to work. That turned into 2.5, 3 years, and the real estate market was as competitive as ever. We had neighbors in Downingtown that they put their house on the market and they had 13 offers, all over like 70 or 80 grand of the original asking price. And it's straight cash, waived the inspection. It was crazy. So when it came to Luzerne Avenue, I believe it was a 3-bed, 1-bath. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
3-bed, 1-bath. I believe the purchase price was 145. It was like 140 or 145. And we were talking about, do we offer 5 grand over, which was totally against our strategy if you look at the first two properties. And we decided, let's go check it out, see if there's any opportunity to add a 4th bedroom or maybe another bath somewhere. So we went up there, we looked through the property. The basement, it's a nice garage, and there was so much room in the basement where we had our contractor Tom Jones kind of walk through it as well, and we added two bedrooms and a really nice bathroom. So it turned into, asking price was 145. We offered 150, and it's now a 5-bedroom, 2-bath.
Right.
At the end of the day. So did you guys have any doubts of Luzerne Avenue when we first brought it up? When it was first brought up?
I had all kinds of reservations on that, but in this partnership, it truly is a partnership, and it's basically, I mean, we'd be in trouble if we had 4 members in this LLC. We have 3, so every vote, somebody wins and someone loses. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I lost, but I was really hesitant on kind of moving off of our strategy of buying low. But I think
Yeah.
part of it was just the times, right? And then when Tom Jones got done doing his work there, I was all in, right? I'm thinking, wow, this is great, and what we've been able to do, refining that house and getting the cash out of that as well. Now that's a 5-bed, 2-bath house. It was a great decision, so I was glad you guys overruled me.
Yeah, Jeff's completely right. I think it was actually a 4-bed, 1-bath when we bought it. But the 4th bedroom was kind of unfinished to an extent. Like, it wasn't in great shape. It was there.
Right.
And that's what kind of gave us the idea of like, well, can we put a bedroom on the other side of the basement? And to Jeff's point, it was a little bit smaller. We didn't know if we could fit a bedroom and a bathroom in such a small space. And that's when we had our contractor come and look at it. And he said, hey, I can get you a bedroom and a bathroom there. And I said, okay, if you can do that, then we'll move forward. And so we did, and turned it into a 5-bed, 2-bath. And to Jeff's point, even though it was a little bit pricier compared to a lot of the other houses we've been purchasing at that time, still adding that extra bedroom and the full bathroom added a ton of extra added equity to the property, which still allowed us to follow the BRRRR strategy that we've been doing.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, and we've run into some issues with Luzerne Avenue from the township, if you guys remember, with the driveway and things like that, and some other things. So be on the lookout for that. You want to check your regulations and things you can and can't do before you go ahead and do it. So
I think the township's forgotten about us.
Yeah, hopefully they're not listening. But really, all that happened was we had a driveway that wasn't big enough to park 5 cars, so we decided to expand the driveway a little bit, and it was already a stone driveway. So to us, we're like, oh, we're just gonna make it a little bit bigger and still keep it a stone driveway. And apparently we got in trouble because we expanded the driveway and they're no longer allowing people to use stone driveways. So if you're grandfathered in with an old driveway that has stone in it, that's completely fine. But if you go redo your driveway and make it with stone, that's not allowed. Even though both of our neighbors took advantage of our contractor and he extended their driveways with some of our stone free of charge to said neighbors, and they did not get the same letter in the mail that we got. So sometimes things just don't go your way.
Yeah, that's true.
So at this point, this was when we refinanced. I believe it was 2021, so it's year 2 of COVID, because we all had to go up there and the bank was technically closed. And
That's
Yeah.
right.
and we had to wait for our banker to open up the back door. We were wearing masks. It was a crazy time. And long story short, we ended up refinancing, getting it reappraised, and then
What did
at
we
this
get at
point
that appraisal? Did it come back? I think we bought it for 150. So our loan was around
I think it.
uh,
So we bought it at 150. Wasn't it closer to? I don't know if it was a full 200.
I think it was 200. I think it was 200 even.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
time, if I remember correctly, we kind of got a little bit creative. We didn't do a traditional cash out refinance just on that property. We kind of went to um, our bank, Luzerne Bank, and I think we bought out Citadel at that time because we still had loans with our original bank. And
Right.
so when we first bought our properties, we used Citadel Bank, which was a little bit closer to the Philadelphia area, where we grew up, Chester County. There was a local bank there, but they weren't up north. And so they kept saying they would do favors for Jeff because Jeff's been a longtime banker and they really liked him. But there were certain things that we felt were being limited by us, not working with a local bank. And so we ended up going to a local bank and asking for a portfolio loan, which is essentially they would take over our entire portfolio. So we gave them all 3 of our properties, Richards, Overbrook, and Luzerne, and said, can you put these 3 properties on one loan? And we got all 3 properties reappraised because during COVID, the prices of real estate was going up tremendously. So we did that. We were able to pull out a little bit of extra money than we were really planning on for just our original burr on that property.
Well, isn't that when we got the equity line?
Yeah,
It might have been.
and so to Jeff's point, we didn't necessarily do a full cash out refinance when we got the portfolio loan. We basically got the portfolio loan and the extra equity. Instead of them handing us cash, we decided to get a equity line of credit, which basically they take the equity that you have in your property, and instead of giving you cash for it, it's just a line of credit. So we can use that money to purchase a house, do our renovations, and then once we're done with the future burr, our plan is to pay it off and then, keep using that money to repeat and grow instead of throwing your money in and not necessarily having it until the refinance is done.
Gotcha. So moving on. I guess it's recent. It's been a year when we bought our last 2 investment properties as a combined deal. And Tom, I'm going to give you credit on this one because you were in contact with the seller and you had the relationship originally. So if you want to talk about that one, and then we'll kind of just chime in from there.
Yeah, I have a kind of an addiction to looking up real estate and trying to find deals and trying to find properties. And for whatever reason, I fell in love with this very unique looking church. I don't know if it's the ugly color green that it has. It's the fact that it's a church that's been turned into residential properties. I don't know what it was, but I've always been in love with this church. And it was on the market, but at the time we just bought our properties and didn't have any money left. So I knew there was no way for me to get this, and I would just check it every other day to see who bought it, because I was just curious when this would sell. And a year and a half later, I still went to check on it, and I'm like, it never looks like it's sold. It must have just sat on the market. And so once we got our portfolio loan and we had a couple extra dollars, I reached out to my realtor, Dawn, and said, "Hey, Dawn, whatever happened to this church? It doesn't look like it ever sold." And she said, "Well, yeah, he couldn't get what he wanted for it, so he's kind of just kept it, but he's probably open to selling, but we don't really know." I said, "Well, if he's open to selling, why don't you let me take a look at it again?" So I took a look at the church, still fell in love with it for the third time. Texted Dan and Jeff saying, "Guys, we got to buy this church. We got to buy this church." I think I was trying to convince you that we could put extra bedrooms in extra places, and none of that was actually true. But I thought it was at the time. And then I don't think Dan or Jeff was able to see the house. Or you guys wanted me to see it one more time.
So
I went and saw it.
Okay, so you went and saw it.
Funny story about that. I at first was against this deal, just didn't think it was worth the price that the seller was asking for. And Tom was able to go see the house, and Jeff saw the house at a later point. I think he made a drive up. I still haven't seen the house or fully walked in it.
Well,
I was in the house.
Let's clarify. You've been in that house.
I've been in that house back in the college days. Yeah, I've been in the house, but when it came to like walking through and checking everything out, I vaguely remember
The house
the
is
actual
across the
inside
street
of the
from
house.
a bar, so Dan went to said bar, then went to said house, and that's why Dan doesn't remember the house.
Bingo.
But one of the coolest things that I'm really proud of that happened is I think the second time I went back to really just get a better feel for Mill Street when we were starting to get traction about buying it. I ended up running into the owner, and usually the owner's not there when you're going to do a walkthrough, but he was there, and he kind of liked the model that we wanted to follow. He already rented the property out to football players, and so he told me he had another house up the street that he also rented out to football players and said, "Hey, you might like this one if you like this house so much." So I said, "Sure." I followed him up there, and I fell in love again with an even better house. And so I'm walking through this next house, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a dream come true. It was 4,600 square feet, absolutely massive. There were football players already living in that house as well. And I just was like, this is the house. If there was ever a house that I wanted to own, it's that one. And unfortunately, I'm sitting there in the back of my head like, there's absolutely no way we can afford to buy the house I'm in right now, let alone try to buy both of them. And the seller told me, "I'll give you a package deal. I'll let you buy both of these, but the only way you can get, Machel, which was the second house we were in, the only way you can purchase Machel is if you also buy Mill Street." And I said, "Okay, let me try to get back to you." And later that day, I obviously called Dan and Jeff, and I was extremely excited about these two perfect properties that I found that would fit into our model. And Dan and Jeff weren't as excited. It was
not even close.
I wasn't excited even a little bit about the church, but when I walked through the Machel property, I'm like, we have to figure out a way to buy this house.
Yeah. And so, one of the issues that we ran into is we had a ton of money that we came across doing our cash out refinance and, building our equity line of credit with the portfolio loan, but it wasn't going to be enough to buy both properties. And, during COVID, money was tighter for everybody, especially us. And so we kind of sat there, and I think we ended up putting an offer in, to at least lock up the house and see if we could agree upon something. We got our offer accepted, but then we still had maybe 60 days to really, is that correct? Or did it take us longer to put the offer in? Because there was a period of time that we really had to debate, hey, are we going to put more money into this to buy these two houses, or are we going to walk away from this deal? And I thought that was after our offer was already in. Or was it before?
Yeah, and
it might have been. The offer might have been in just so we could kind of lock it down
and get the inspections done, because we said this is great, but let's get the inspections. And then the inspections came back, and they had a little bit more work to do. And that's when we really decided, well, if we're going to do this right, we have to put in an extra $20,000.
And to be quite honest with you, I know for myself, I was like, I don't know if this is the right move. And we had, it wasn't really us deciding, it was a full on debate that we were having,
Yeah.
and it was just like every day it was, hey, are we doing this or not? And it's like, I don't know. And then finally, I think, Tom, you convinced me to be like, hey, we should probably do this. And it's turned out great. I think. I mean, go ahead, chime
I was
in.
just going to say, I I think that's when I put together a couple spreadsheets, just looking at like future cash flow, what we could do with both properties, adding bedrooms, jacking up. The rents were so underpriced, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
There were no leases.
There's no Crazy Kevin, the seller, he wacko. But when you actually ran the numbers, not so much the first year, right, or just assuming the properties, but putting leases in place, starting to move rents more towards market rents, adding additional bedrooms and cash flows, like this could really turn into something good. And that's what kind of got me over the hump of, okay, I'll put another capital contribution in because of what it can mean when we get both these up and running, right?
yeah. And that's exactly what happened. We sat down, we broke down the numbers, and we realized it'd be pretty silly if we didn't end up putting a couple extra dollars into our company so that we could make this, new purchase that was really going to help, us take it to the next level.
Right.
Yeah. And we did the same thing that we did with our first three properties, really walk through, see what the options were when it came to, oh, could we add another bedroom here and add another bathroom here? So when we bought it, it was a 6-bedroom, 2-bath. Am I right with that? And
Bedroom, right? I think it was.
it was six. It was
Yeah.
either 5 or 6-bedroom, 2
Yeah.
bath, and there's a bathroom downstairs, and the bathroom upstairs, you had 6 college football players sharing one bathroom because there's something wrong with the bathroom downstairs. So, but the ventilation wasn't great, so it looked like the ceiling was about to fall down.
Yeah.
So we ended up having our trustworthy contractor, Tom Jones. I'm going to give him a shout out. Tom Jones is awesome.
Sure.
And Tom Jones.
Tom Jones that has shows in Las Vegas. This is different Tom Jones.
Different Tom Jones, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, we take the 6-bedroom, 2-bath, we turn it into a 8-bed, 4.5-bath.
Yep.
And we have 8 college football players there. And so far it's been great. And then Mill Street is the other property that we bought. So to kind of summarize, we had a combined deal for what we call Machel and Mill, the old church. And what was Machel? It was a funeral home?
Yeah, Machel was a funeral home / house where the family lived in there, and
So it all ties back together to our strategy originally. If somebody has passed away or going into assisted living, there's a church, they're going up to heaven, and there's the funeral home. So that's TDJ's strategy. Just kidding. But that being said, so Mill Street is interesting because it's actually technically it's a commercial unit or commercial.
So a multi-family house. It's technically 2 units.
Right.
So they have a 3-bed, 1-bath. Downstairs is 1 unit, and then upstairs is a 4-bed, 1-bath unit.
Right. So all in all, we have really 7 beds at one. We have 8 beds at the other in just a combined deal.
Yeah.
So looking back on it, this has actually been a great deal for us because we added 15 additional rooms that we can rent out for cash flow.
Yeah.
And cash flow is not the only thing. We do all the renovations, and do we want to dive into the full-on renovation part of Machel?
I think it's cool to touch on kind of the financing we got at Machel. A lot of people, like Jeff made this comment earlier, you make your money when you buy. And so when we bought Machel, because we were also buying Mill Street, I believe we got a killer deal. And at that time, we took the property to the bank and said, hey, Luzerne Bank. We had this great property. We're buying it for an extreme discount, and you actually give us a loan for more than what we're buying this property for. And so we went to Luzerne Bank and asked for what's called a construction loan. And a construction loan is basically them saying, well, yeah, we think the property is worth, what was it, $300,000? And so we
Right.
were getting it for, I think, 220,000.
It's 220, and I think mill was 190.
Yeah. So what ended up
It was 410 altogether.
So what ended up happening is Luzerne Bank gave us a loan for $80,000 of work and construction that we can put into the property. And so we, were able to buy Machel and put $80,000 into it by redoing the roof, adding to several bedrooms. We redid the kitchen. We added bathrooms. We basically completely gutted the 2 baths.
Basically 4.5 new bathrooms.
Yeah, 4.5 brand new
Yeah.
bathrooms. And so we were able to do all that and a couple other things, repaint some walls with that $80,000. And, so that was, a beautiful thing to Jeff's point, just making your money when you buy. We made so much money that we were able to use that money and put that equity back in, to the property. So that was a pretty cool experiment with a new loan.
Absolutely. So that's really the overview of TDJ Investments. Now, the question I have for you, Jeff, where do you want TDJ to go, whether it's in the next 2 or 3 years, next 5 years? Do we want to expand and move away from Dallas, or just, if it isn't broke, don't fix it?
Well, I'll tell you the advantage of where we're operating now is the real estate market isn't batshit crazy like it is where I live currently or down in Florida. I'm talking about, asking prices and et cetera. That's the first thing. Second thing is we have an infinite pipeline of potential tenants, right? So you got lower cost housing prices, great tenant pool, and we have existing relationships. So it'd be great to stay up there. But I guess your question was, where do I see TDJ in the next 5 years? I mean, we should, if we continue down this path, whether it's in Pennsylvania or we invest in other markets, maybe where you guys live. A double easily, right? We should be able to double this.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah.
I don't know how many units we have now. We have 15 on the last 2 properties, 5 at Luzerne, that's 20. 4 at Richards. Well, yeah, 4 at Richards and 4 in, so that's what, 28?
28
rooms.
Yeah, but Richards is. Yeah, but unfortunately, we can only have one person, or I guess a family at Richards, but still.
Right.
So 25, 28.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason if we stick to our strategy, doubling this. That's just my thoughts.
I would even take it a step further and just say, what we've done in 5 years has gotten us to this point. We're currently working with Luzerne Bank to do another cash out refinance and take a little bit more money out. And I think where we're at now mentally, and especially just taking on those 2 properties last year, that was a huge deal for us. And to do all of those repairs all at one time, that was a lot. And I think once we were able to do that,
it was stressful.
Yes, it was. And so doing that and seeing how, and making the money we were able to make, I think only is going to encourage us to do, bigger projects moving forward as a company. So I think Jeff's point of doubling in the next 5 years is definitely where we're going to be at.
So another thing that I think would be good for the listeners. So when we were buying these properties, we were our own property managers, right? Really, Tom was our property manager. If you guys want to kind of weigh in on the pros and cons of managing tenants ourselves and talk about where we're at now with Cobblestone and Casey and Marty.
I can take this one. To Dan's point, I was doing a decent amount of the property management, and
for free.
it's unique to do property management, and so I'll explain it from two perspectives. I have 10 properties now, and 5 by myself, and then 5 with TDJ. And so when I was managing, my 4 rentals, I didn't have as many. I don't know how to think. It was a lot easier to make decisions when I was just managing properties for myself, because if I needed to do something, I did it, and I didn't have to talk to other people about it. But when you're in a partnership, it becomes a lot more difficult to be a property manager, in my opinion, because unless if you had set guidelines, I think this is something we could have done slightly better. Our guidelines weren't set perfectly. And so I was trying to be maybe too nice, and I would handle, some property management things, but I would then ask Dan for his opinion and then ask Jeff for his opinion. And then by the time I got both guys' opinions, another week later before whatever it was that was broken got fixed. And that just added, it was more like an issue with our process versus anything else. And so, we did that for several years, and then we decided that it'd be best, now that we have our 5 properties, to get a property manager. And I think what we've seen the best out of that is just the communication piece has been much nicer. The property manager handles a lot of the issues, and we kind of let him run with what's going on and correcting those problems. And so there's not as much back and forth between the partners. It's more like a collective agreement. What we get from the property manager, we're typically agreeing with. And it's really allowed us to get back into the growth of our company, which is where our minds all think the best. I mean, Jeff found our first property. I found a couple of them. Dan found a great property. And so really getting us back into the searching. And obviously we didn't have a ton of money, so we had to manage our properties when we first started. But yeah, so my 2 cents.
Anything else you want to add there, Jeff?
Yeah, I would just say that, Tom, you said sometimes you're too nice. I thought I was the prick in the partnership, but I've seen some of our property managers text back to the tenants, and I'm thinking I was easy.
Yeah. No, it's very.
This guy, he doesn't take any shit, man. I like that guy.
So there's pros and cons with property management, whether you want to be your own property manager or hire a third party. I mean, we've done it both ways. It kind of gets us back to the growth mindset of where's our next deal coming from, right? Is it in Dallas, PA? Is it in Orlando? Is it in Houston? Is it St. Augustine? Doesn't matter. It's just, it flips the mindset, right?
Yeah.
And one last thing I just wanted to touch on. If there is anybody out here that has rental properties or is looking to get them, I would definitely recommend using Rent Ready. That was one thing that definitely changed for us. We were managing all of our properties by ourselves, and it was a lot more stressful. Once we simplified things, rent payments and everything else that Rent Ready provided, that's just a simple application, and we loved using Rent Ready. That made the management piece a lot easier. So I would recommend that to anybody that I could.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wrapping up real quick. So we're getting close to the hour mark here. So Jeff, real quick, for somebody who's looking to get into real estate, what's a piece of advice or something that, is, I don't want to say it's like, oh, I heard a bad thing about real estate, so I'm not going to do it. Like, give some advice for the listeners or something that you thought of when you first jumped in.
I would say have some stability in your life in terms of, and I'm just saying, like I hear stories or I read stories about, people like, hey, I'm going to be a real estate investor full time, and they're going to wholesale properties, and that may work. Like I haven't met any successful wholesalers, but I haven't, maybe I haven't met the right people. But I do know that, like when I went to Citadel for the first loan, and my contacts there, like the loan officer, the guy who runs the commercial loan department, who I know, he's like, I'm really glad you're involved in this deal. And I said, why? And he said, because we wouldn't loan it to your son or his friend. And I go, why? Because they don't have any credit? And they're like, no, they have no experience.
Mm.
And which was really interesting to me. So I think like if you have a stability, like you have an income, whatever, I think that's you want to make sure you have that number one where you're not relying on a deal going through to pay your living expenses, right?
Right.
The second thing is I think there's a huge advantage of not going it alone, having a partner or a couple partners, right? I mean, three heads are better than one, and hopefully you have all your partners aren't just like you. Like there's some people that have maybe different personalities, maybe are more conservative or less conservative. I think we have that here with TDJ. We have we're all three different people. So I think those are the two things. And again, I just stress again, like make your money when you buy it, not hope for appreciation and refi, because appreciation market goes like this. I mean, lately the market's been going straight up, but the reality is it doesn't go straight up. And the other thing too, I mean, we haven't even touched on the banks becoming even more conservative lately.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
So you're hoping for a big refi number, and it comes back and it's not, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. That's happening a lot. So.
And that can be a whole other conversation about creative financing and using other people's money, private lending, etc., so on and so forth, instead of going to your conventional bank and
right.
Trying to get a refinance or a loan out. So the other thing that I wanted to ask, as you being our first guest on the Philly Real Estate Special, who's your NFL team? We can see it in the background.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds, baby.
And hold on, my camera's.
Yeah, you're frozen, Dan. That's a good look for you.
It's just excited about the Birds, man. You can't take it out of him.
See, you talk about the Birds, and this is what happens. So
that was your first question. What's your second question? Did we lose Dan? Hopefully not.
Houston connection.
Stelzer, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you. He might have rebooted. I think sometimes he'll reboot when he cuts out like that.
Gotcha. Well, I'm definitely a fourfer. Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, and Flyers, sadly.
It's a tough life. A lot of my friends text me and say we're the city of second place right now. So hoping to change that this year.
That's all right. This year will be a good year. I can't wait for this football season to start.
I can't believe how good they were last year. I mean, for Jalen Hurts to lose 2 games, including the Super Bowl, I mean, I would have never imagined him to play as well as he did. So I'm excited to watch him again this year.
And I'm hearing great things about the both Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis.
Yeah.
They're having really good camps. They say Jalen Carter may be supplanting Jordan Davis.
I think, they say he is. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the new defensive coordinator too. I mean, a lot of the games last year, I just couldn't stand the schemes that Gannon was trying to run. So I'm excited to see what we can do with a new defensive coordinator in there. He said he wants to be more like Philly, be more aggressive. So I'm hoping, we get a couple. And I'm not saying you have to blitz, but, play more press man coverage. You have a great key line, like get your corner.
I was talking to someone. I said, hopefully this defensive coordinator will be comfortable putting some of our stars in challenging positions. I felt like Gannon was protecting our guys a lot, like our secondary, instead of like playing more press man to man, like sitting back in that soft zone and not letting anything over the top. Like we got players back there, let them perform.
But on top of that, like what are you doing for your offense? Like when you let the other team be out on the field and then they're getting a rhythm, you're making the game harder. I mean, not to bring in our rivals, but I used to love watching Dallas a couple years back when they didn't necessarily have the best defense, but boy, were they aggressive and they were playing, tight coverage, man to man. You had to beat them with skill. They weren't going to give you anything easy.
Yeah.
They got the ball back and they just ran it down your throat with Zeke. They controlled the clock. I mean, and they were really unbeatable when they were playing that style. And I feel like Gannon's, passive defensive style really allowed teams to stay in some games when they shouldn't have been,
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
got you.
hey,
Where'd he go? Oh, is he coming
is
back?
he back?
Oh,
Oh,
we
yeah,
are back. Hey. So
Wait,
we're back.
What was that? A bathroom break?
No, it was not a bathroom break, but technical difficulties. So it didn't happen in the first episode, so it had to happen in this one.
Gonna
Anyway,
happen sometime.
All you
So,
did was miss some Birds talk. We just talked about, Eagles are going to go to the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts is going to be the MVP, and yeah, that's it.
Jalen Carter, Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
Yeah, we talked about that. We said Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter having camps or having days.
So, so Tom said Eagles winning the Super Bowl. What's your realistic prediction for the Eagles?
They'll be 11-6.
11-6.
I'm just being realistic. I think they literally could be like 8 or 9-0 to start the season, but the whole second half of the year is a killer schedule.
Yeah, there's that gauntlet of, I think it's the Chiefs, Niners, Bills. I don't want to throw the Cowboys in there. I really don't.
Dan, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Can we get your roster for fantasy?
Oh, yeah. So I actually stopped
after that horrible
drafting
pick. I don't blame you. You should have just
Whoa. So I got Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
Nick Chubb.
Okay.
DeAndre Swift.
Okay.
Devontae Adams. Deontay Johnson. Mark Andrews. So
Lamar and Mark. I got you.
Yep. Michael Pittman's in the flex right now. I got Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson, Geno Smith is my backup. The rookie wide receiver for the Chargers, or maybe it's a second year, Johnston or whatever.
Johnson,
I don't know.
Right? Yeah, I think he's a rookie.
Yeah. And then I have Michael Gallup. Apparently, I just auto-picked for Michael Gallup. So there's that.
For those of you that don't know, Dan also...
Dolphins defense, too.
Dan just did a draft at 8 o'clock, right when we started our podcast. So he's been drafting this team
7 o'clock
entire time.
Central. So, yeah. So I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation that we had. It was going up to 52 minutes, and then I don't know what happened. My camera stopped working. My microphone was blinking. I think somebody was trying to hack me.
It's too hot
but
there, Dan. You gotta turn your fan on.
Dude, it was actually pretty cold today. It was 96, so it's not bad.
Yeah,
it's not bad. So Jeff, appreciate you hopping on the Philly real estate special. Anything else you want to say? Where can people find you, or do you not want people to find you?
Find me for what?
I don't know. Follow you? You gave some good insight.
I have a Twitter account.
give it to
Okay,
us.
what's the Twitter?
I have to look it up.
J Kiely 46 on Twitter. There it is.
It's J Kyle's 65, I think, or something like that. Yeah, see, I know it, you don't, but that's all right. Anything else you want to say before we sign off here?
No, I just say, guys, thanks for inviting me. I had a blast. It was fun.
Awesome.
It was fun thinking about those stories. I'm thinking back to cleaning out Overbrook. I'm just cracking up some of the stuff we found.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
This past weekend, I was up for a wedding in northeastern PA, and I had to clean out my garage. And I'm thinking about selling one of my houses up there. And I go into the garage and I see, do you remember that, what is that? The American flag when it's like given in a triangle and it's basically in honor of a vet?
Oh, I remember that. You took that.
I took that because I didn't know what to do with it. Well, now it's sitting in my garage at my other house, and I still don't know what to do with it. So when you're talking about the things that we cleaned up out of Overbrook, yeah.
That's funny.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thanks again.
Yep.
Everybody, thank you for listening to the Philly Real Estate Special. Feel free to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube at the Philly Real Estate Special. Like, comment, subscribe. You know, give us some feedback, positive, negative. It really doesn't matter. We're trying to, make this, grow this thing and really make it something special and talk about real estate and help other people get involved, because I think it's one of the better investments out there. And follow us on Instagram at Philly Real Estate Special, Twitter or X, TPRES 4687. And we are on TikTok too. So Philly RE Special as well. So we'll have some clips out on that. Tom, anything you want to say to the viewers?
Yeah, anything that you guys want to hear Dan and I talk about, please let us know. I was very surprised and happily surprised with all the people that have reached out to me over the last week or so about the podcast. So please give us tips. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about, because we'd love to, keep you engaged and do the best we can to answer any real estate related questions that everybody has.
Absolutely. So for Tom, this is Dan Kiely, and this was the Philly Real Estate Special. Stay tuned for next week's episode.